over there at Churchill Downs. He will not be entered in the Kentucky Derby because of a condylar fracture to his right foreleg. Sarge, what exactly is that injury?
Yeah, such unfortunate news for Team WinStar and the Cold Press Racing trainer Brad Cox. And essentially, a condylar fracture is a fracture of the cannon bone, and sometimes can relate into the ankle. Can involve the ankle joint, but not necessarily. I think in this particular case, the good news is reaching out to Brad Cox, he mentioned that it's non-displaced. What does non-displaced mean? There's two differences. There's a displaced fracture, which would require a little more kind of tightening of the screws and alignment of the bone. With a non-displaced condylar fracture, I think it's a very straightforward process. And I think at the end of the day, I think the prognosis for this horse to return to racing is quite favorable. Young horse, the injury, kudos to Luis Saez for pulling this horse up, in a proper amount of time, because you can get extensive injury with that. But, horses recover from this quite frequently. And I think the fact that it is a non-displaced fracture is very positive.
Okay, so if everything goes well for his healing process, just in general terms with this injury, how much time is this horse going to need off? When might we see him come back? Again,
speculating that potentially there could be a 1 or 2 screw placement here to compress the bone. I would imagine that there are 2 schools of thought here. Either of those screws will stay in and that horse could return to training. But say, for example, if the screws were to be placed and then removed, probably at about the 90-day point, I would say in the perfect world of imperfection, as we know in the game of horse racing, likely probably about a 6-month turnaround.
All right, so with Japan Street coming out, the other part to this story is it allows other horses to draw in. So who is that next horse up and will make it into the starting gate for the Kentucky Derby with Japan Street out? Right behind you, Sarge, that's going to be Render Judgment. He is the bubble horse now, draws into the Kentucky Derby field with 39 points. This was a major change from 24 hours ago because it seemed like the connections were going to opt in past the Kentucky Derby. Now, earlier this morning, they're saying, nope, we're going. We are in.
Well, it's Kenny McPeak. He's not afraid of a dance here. And certainly, it was interesting to hear what Kenny had to say in regard to Take Charge Milady, who's dealing with what appears to be a quarter cracker, what he deemed as a hangnail in layman's terms. But in this particular case, this is a horse that had a similar foot injury earlier on, and apparently the horse must be doing well. And I know that so many out there are anticipatory of Baeza getting in, and so many want to because of the fact of the relationship and obviously the siblings having won a Kentucky Derby and a Belmont Stakes in Mage and Dornoch. So again, the Derby is 7 days away, but seemingly things change overnight. We just found out today with Japan Street. It's very unfortunate.
But as you mentioned a second ago, Baeza is still on the outside looking in. There's just going to be one also eligible. He sits at number 21 on the leaderboard. He accumulated 37.5 qualifying points in his stakes debut. That was in the Santa Anita Derby in his most recent start when he finished second behind Journalism. So he's on deck. He is the only horse on the outside looking in at number 21, with Baeza looking to go ahead and make it into the starting gate as well. There was some other news coming out this morning as well. Trainer Tom Drury, he conditions California Burrito. He also said he will not be entered in the Kentucky Derby, but will instead opt for the Pat Day Mile. And it really doesn't affect the connections of Baeza because California Burrito is actually below Baeza.
Correct. And I think in regards to a California Burrito, and knowing our former associate, formerly known here at TVG with Aaron and Vicky Aberman, I think it comes down to this being more of a proper spot for California Burrito in the sense that he's going to the Pat Day Mile. We heard yesterday in regard to Built doing that same thing. So I really applaud the connections for not kind of allowing the Derby fever to set in.
All right, so that is the latest news to go ahead and start off your day here on FanDuel TV. The other news is that it was closing day at Keeneland Racecourse yesterday. Opening night at Churchill Downs coming up later on this evening. Full team coverage out there. First post is going to be 5 o'clock Eastern time, and the feature on the opening night card at Churchill Downs is going to be the Roxalana Stakes. We'll take a look at the field that is going to be lining up in the Roxalana later on this evening. 5-2 morning line favorite Sandy Bottom, Joel Rosario, going to be riding here for trainer Michael McCarthy, a very fast filly.
Very fast filly, and certainly when you consider what the Southern California horses have done shipping out east, they've certainly performed more than adequately. Let's go back, though, and take a look at the effort in the Carousel Stakes at Oaklawn Park on the 23rd of February.
Now Justique is coming up the rail. Here comes Justique and Jose Ortiz right through down at the rail. The rail was left open. Benedetta tries to move with her. Justique, Benedetta, stride for stride, coming to the line, and Justique has won the carousel in a rail skimming ride. A fantastic ride there by Jose Ortiz. Benedetta, second best, then Sandy Bottom and Lady Moscato.
All right, she opened up a length in the stretch, tied a little bit to finish third, but still a credible effort in defeat.
Incredible effort. I think the fact that, again, going back to the idea that she was leaving Southern California, shipping to Oaklawn, now she's had kind of a taste for it. Difficult based on the fact that Justique, who won that race, came back to run disappointing coming out of that. So hardly franked the form there. But the other point at which you get Joel Rosario, he became acquainted with this daughter of Omaha Beach, and that certainly is going to be a positive for her. And then when you look at the pace dynamic of that particular race, I actually like the way she sets up. I mean, there are other two pace possibilities, namely with Harbor Springs Non-Violence. She comes off of that monster performance last out there at Evangeline Downs going the flat mile. Now, granted, she would be taking on much better horses in this spot, all things considered, but the Spotted Horse Stakes, certainly kind of a watershed moment for her.
Spurts clear at the furlong marker, and Non-Violence begins to pull away, and Non-Violence is going to run away and hide in the Spotted Horse. Non-Violence, Mitchell Merle, they win easy, about 6 in the end. Then it's Nora G, a maturity date, close for 4th, and Philip the Super might have been best performer, edging out Trying My Heart Out.
Winning margin even slightly more than that, 8 1/4 on the winning post for Non-Violence, going 8 furlongs in that race we just showed you, turning back in distance to 6 furlongs, but she is run well here at Churchill Downs. She's 1 for 1 in the past.
Yeah, and I think that means a lot, obviously as a horse player, as a handicapper. I think more importantly, she kind of gets back to the numbers that we saw last summer at Ellis Park. When you look at Thurgraph, you look at Ragozin. Not an easy task against this caliber of filly, knowing that you're going to actually cut back. But I think she's going to offer up a better value than what the board indicates. She's 9-2 on the morning line. I think you get north of at least 5-6-1 maybe.
All right, so that's race number 9 at Churchill Downs. That is the Roxalana Stakes. Post time is going to be 9:40 Eastern time, and that stakes race is part of a money-back special opportunity. You can get up to $10 back if that play finishes 2nd or 3rd on select races. You can see the select races right there. Also applies to Oaklawn Park race number 9. Churchill Downs races 1, 6, and 9, so 3 races at Churchill, and then race number 7 at Santa Anita is where we take you next. Our feature out here in Southern California is going to be the Royal Heroine Stakes, Grade 3 event, mile on the grass, and our morning line favorite at 2-1 for Jonathan Thomas and Augustin Stables, who went wire to wire in the Grade 3 Wilshire last race. Yeah,
can't say enough for Jonathan Thomas and the fact that he kept a string out here, and a modest string at that. He didn't keep many horses. It was less than 10 being that number, but Tirapati, this was a very, very good performance for her, setting her up perfectly for that. She's raced well here at Santa Anita. She clearly has made that transition into her 4-year-old year. I thought this was a pretty impressive performance, and Gilberto Rispoli will be back in the irons. Sans Lasix, no problem here for this 4-year-old daughter of Natoli.
Hey, this horse was a reclaim for trainer Jonathan Thomas. They lost her via the claim box for $25,000. They thought much higher of that, Sarge, because they lost her for $25,000. They claimed her back for $50,000 immediately after that.
Well, it's always a curious thing. The previous connection with the Augustin stable, who'd had her when they dropped in for a tag. I mean, clearly at that point in time, I don't think they were dropping to win. I think when they dropped and she did what she did, they realized that, hey, we must have maybe left some money on the table. Coming back for $50,000, no problem. Record speaks for itself.
All right, that's a closer look at the Grade 3 Royal Heroine. That is coming up later today from Santa Anita. Post time is going to be 4:08 Pacific time. Once again, that is part of a money-back special. You can get up to $10 back if that play finishes 2nd or 3rd. Find all the details at racing.fanduel.com. Here's what's coming up over the next 60 minutes here on FanDuel TV. A lot of early pick 5s to begin the day. Race number 1 at Laurel Park, race number 1 at Tampa Bay. We'll have some international racing from Haydock. But really we're batting lead off here. We're setting up the day.